Awesome fight scenes, campy comedy, and epic villains are all the main reasons we fell in love with Power Rangers in the first place. So, a season entirely focused on Kung Fu would assumably be the greatest season of Power Rangers of all time. But a lot of people tend to forget about Jungle Fury. I don't see a lot of people saying it's their absolute favorite season. It doesn't need to be considered the best, but it should be well respected among the fandom because it's a fantastic season. Hey guys, my name's Casey. I'm a huge Power Ranger nerd, and this channel is all about Power Rangers. Lots of fan theories, other videos talking about different seasons. So if you want to check out some of this, I'm not going to do any of that petty stuff where I tell you to subscribe or like the video or do anything like that. I'm not like that. But if you would like to be more involved, I would love it. So Jungle Fury came at a rough time. It aired in 2008, right after Operation Overdrive, which is commonly one of the most disliked seasons of the franchise. Although I don't personally agree it deserves the negativity, the viewership was in a bad place, and Disney was already starting to itch at the idea of getting rid of the franchise. Not to mention they were dealing with a writer's strike during production. On the flip side of the coin, Jungle Fury was followed by RPM, which is commonly a favorite season for franchise fans. For years, fans wanted something more mature, and a post-apocalyptic world where robots decimated the existence of humans is pretty epic. Dylan's bad boy mysterious past driving a muscle car is a big difference from RJ's hippie personality. Without a crossover from Overdrive or RPM to connect the season to the franchise, it tends to leave Jungle Fury alone and forgotten. Bruce Kalish was the executive producer on Jungle Fury. He had executive produced SPD, Mystic Force, and Operation Overdrive prior. If you are a fan of work behind the scenes, you probably have heard the term Kalish-splosions. During his time as executive producer, the explosions in the show became extremely large. Since it was under his leadership overlooking things, it got credited as a part of his style, but this ultimately came down to the stunt coordinator and director at the time, Mark Harris. Bruce is also noted for not asking back a director / firing them after they made a comment of, "Why bother, it's just Power Rangers." Jungle Fury was his last season, but even a year later he was looking out for the show. He came across a post on the Ranger board from Jack Olesker asking fans for Power Ranger pitches. Bruce reported him to the head of Disney's programming. This could have caused a giant legal battle. If someone gave a pitch for a Ranger season on the board, Disney could have been sued if the newest seasons showed similarities. Also, note that Disney wouldn't have known it was a stolen idea. Just a giant mess. But luckily, Bruce was on top of it, even though he had moved on to work on Aaron Stone. Also on the project with Jungle Fury was Jackie Marchand. No one knew the Ranger franchise like Jackie. She had been a long time writing for the show before becoming a co-producer on Overdrive and Jungle Fury. I always go down rabbit holes when researching for videos, but this I haven't seen before. It was a thank you credit on IMDb for Celestial Fury. It's a fan film for Power Rangers made back in 2007. It is currently on YouTube. I've never heard of this before, but I took the opportunity to watch it, and it was a really good fan film. After Jungle Fury, she was supposed to be moved up to executive producer. They were going to pair her with Eddie Gonzalian and split the pay. This would have pushed her pay backwards, and she asked for more money because of her long-running experience with the show. And of course, as Power Rangers famously does, they said no. So instead, she went back to writing for the show. They fired her after she wrote 3 episodes of RPM. It's sad to see that that's the last experience she had with the franchise. When Hasbro acquired Power Rangers, Jackie tweeted that she'd like to return to the franchise. So far, nothing has been said, but she would be a great person to have considering some of the seasons she worked the heaviest on were some of the best. She also took a hiatus from Power Rangers after Time Force because she didn't like how they were pushing to stick closer to Sentai footage. She's also responsible for the creation of the Spirit Rangers, which we'll get to later. So Jackie being a part of a completely original Power Rangers would be a dream come true for her. She was the longest running veteran of the show after Judd Chip Lynn. The name of the game on this season was efficiency. Truly every aspect of this show was pressure cooked down to make the perfect efficient storyline. Seasons that start with only 3 Rangers like Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder have advantages for writers of the show. With the writers only having to focus on 3 instead of 5, they can use their storytelling more efficiently. By the time we incorporate a new Ranger, we know these 3 far better than we know the 5. And Jungle Fury is more efficient than Dino Thunder and Ninja Storm, in my opinion. I know there are a lot of Dino Thunder and Ninja Storm fans, and I'm not saying they're bad. There are just some things about Jungle Fury I'm very impressed with. The first episode is a great example of how they use their screen time in the best possible way. It opens up with the voiceover from Master Mao explaining what Pai Shui is. Then we come down to a group of students meditating. Lily's eyes are wide open and she starts talking to Theo. As Lily jokingly complains about being out all night, Theo is telling her to stop talking, but he is smirking. They show us the difference of these two characters instantly. Lily is more happy, bubbly, and isn't a stickler for the rules like Theo. Theo is very serious, but he does have a soft spot for Lily. This was a beautifully written scene from Bruce Kalish and Jackie Marchand. They are giving you information in a very natural way. The best way I can explain it is something I heard Steve Martin say. He uses an example of a scene where two brothers are walking down the street. The obvious way someone would write it is one brother turning to the other one saying, "Jake, you're my brother, and we, whatever." It does show the information to the audience, but no one would ever turn to their brother and say, "You're my brother," out of nowhere. The other way to say it is one brother turning to the other saying, "Have you heard from Dad lately?" It's a natural question and it tells you they're brothers because of the context of the question. This opening scene is written very naturally between Lily and Theo, and there have definitely been times in Power Rangers where they don't write these scenes very naturally. I've seen a few comments online of people criticizing Theo and Lily's characters, saying they don't have any character development. I strongly disagree. They have lots of great character development. Lily maybe changes the least, but it makes sense with her character. She's the cheerleader who also kicks butt. She is always encouraging her team, but also comes down when the boys need it. Anna Hutchinson, much like her character, was really enthusiastic. She was very excited to do the drama scenes and be able to jump into action and stunt scenes. Her positive personality was only enhanced by Theo Martin's actor, Algin Abella. He was a fan of Power Rangers when he was a kid, stating that he used to pretend to be a Power Ranger on the playground at school. Director Vanessa Alexander referred to Algin as the glue that kept the cast together, always helping make people laugh on long shoots. The villains in this season are also done efficiently. Instead of having to show us two separate origin stories between heroes and villains, we saw both in the same scene. We quickly learn Jared, Lily, and Theo are the strongest fighters, but soon see that Jared is quite troubled. Casey sticking up for a fellow Cub shows us he is good, strong, and inexperienced. By 3 minutes and 18 seconds of the first episode, we have an amazing grasp on almost all of our main characters' personalities. As it progresses, we learn about the Chosen Three and Dai Shi. Jared comes down to argue his replacement. Now, I have to say, Master Mao is probably the worst of the Pai Shui masters. He dragged Jared along his training for 10 years and then cut him when he finally proven himself. In 10 years, Master Mao didn't teach him how to control his anger. If Jared had studied under RJ, this would have never happened. And there's never a hint at Jared being the chosen one to defeat Dai Shi, sort of like an Anakin Skywalker Darth Vader plotline. So there is really no reason for Master Mao's terrible leadership with Jared. BB Skinner, who played Jared, did an amazing job. Jared is out to prove something, and that spirit comes through BB's performance. BB had just graduated from pharmacy school, but acting was something he dreamed of doing. I'm sure he had to feel some sense of pressure to make it worth doing all that schooling. Now, he's done well in television over the years, but BB still practices as a pharmacist. There's a channel called BB Skinner Health and Wellbeing Coach on YouTube. There are only 6 videos, and they are all based on a program called the Pharmacy 5-Day Resilience Challenge. It is a quick watch, and he gives great tips to help you take control of your life. If you find yourself having a difficult time or just being generally stressed about life, I have the playlist linked, and I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's free and a quick watch, and it's all great advice. We meet Camille later. We've had lots of villains in the past who learn from their evil ways, but Camille is a little different. She is in love with Dai Shi, and Jared to her is nothing but a vessel. Over time, the feelings she has for Dai Shi shift as she sees more and more of the humanity in Jared. By the time the Phantom Beasts betray Camille, Jared saves her, and she realizes she has a connection to Jared that she never had with Dai Shi. She does a fantastic job being a little bit of a silly character at times, but also being pretty awesome in battles as well. She sort of takes on the Finster and Goldar roles. We really only have one villain sidekick in this series, unlike Operation Overdrive where we had tons of villains. She's on her own journey. When she goes to JKP to talk to the Rangers, she finds that Lily is kind, and it is puzzling to her why anyone would be kind to her, and that affects her a lot through the rest of the show. As the Rangers search for their new master, they enter Jungle Karma Pizza. Now, Jungle Karma Pizza is to become this season's juice bar, and to make it even easier, it's their command center as well. This makes the shifts between a playful environment to a serious one, although they don't really follow those as a rule. This to me is one of the most brilliant settings. Now, Dino Thunder had their base in Haley's Internet Cafe. They couldn't shift from fun to serious. Ninja Storm had the Wind Academy and the Sports Shop. The Rangers working at the pizza shop also works out efficiently. RJ's lessons and their own experience can be reinforced or moved forward in the times they are working. Let's take the original series where they hung out at the juice bar. On occasion, Jason or Tommy would be teaching a martial arts class, but most of the time it was sort of a filler. A place for the comic relief to happen and where they could congregate at the end of the episode to say, you know, guys, Zordon was right, or I'm glad I got over my fear of whatever. But at Jungle Karma Pizza, Theo can get beaten in a fight, then screw up a customer's order and still push the storyline forward that Theo is losing his confidence. It really is a well thought out location. The set for the loft and the pizza parlor were actually next to each other, so each set has a fake stairwell leading to nowhere. They put a lot of work into the loft to make it the perfect balance of hippie and soothing, but apparently they tried to give the city feel of the loft more of an East Coast vibe compared to the California or LA scene that it's typically based on. The cast did take a 2-week pizza making course so they could look like they knew what they were doing when making pizzas. Like several seasons of Power Rangers, the mentor becomes a ranger. Now this again is a really good use of time. Dino Charge is a great example of not using this method. Now I'm a big fan of Kendall and I'm really glad she got to become a ranger, but a lot of people aren't big fans of Keeper. The writers never focused on Keeper's backstory or gave us much insight to him, which causes some fans to dislike him. Anytime Keeper was on screen, we could have been learning more about Kendall. Jungle Fury did this better. Instead of a mentor and an assistant mentor, we just have RJ, and then RJ becomes a ranger. We don't waste time with extra characters or meaningless storylines. And I'm glad they did focus so much on RJ because he is one of my favorite characters of all time. He takes on several stereotypes and puts them into one character. RJ has a hippie feel, giving him some of the best comedic moments in the series, mostly pointing out the irony in situations and then laughing to himself as the villains or rangers look puzzled. He is also the brainiac, taking on sort of Alpha 5 and Billy's role, furthering the technology used by the Rangers. RJ's character is oftentimes underestimated, and his role in the franchise is definitely underestimated as well. He shows extreme intelligence and mastery of Pai Shui. Now remember, at this point there are only 4 living masters and RJ is one of them. Master Swoop even credited RJ with teaching him a few things while he trained RJ. This impressive characteristic is overshadowed by RJ's humility. Bringing up that he is a master isn't something he does often. He even tells the Rangers to not bow to him, as is the tradition from student to master. We do get a great Karate Kid homage in the episode where he makes Casey do a bunch of tasks that turn out to build his muscle memory for the fighting techniques that he needed to know. RJ is played by David D. Latour. He had auditioned for the Mercury Ranger in Operation Overdrive, but I can't picture him as anything but this fun-loving hippie. David said the inspiration for RJ for him came as a mashup between Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves. The American accent wasn't hard for him since he had lived in America for 6 years. But RJ is one of the most conflicted characters deep down. As we later learn, he is the son of Master Finn. His ancestors fought and trained with the spirit of the shark. My wife likes to point out that a shark is not a jungle animal. RJ's courage to find his own spirit animal is a big deal because not only did he find it, but he mastered it. He truly is the lone wolf, and he had to overcome a lot to be the strong fighter and mentor he is today. And his imperfections are some of the relatable things about him. When RJ joins the Rangers as the franchise's first Purple Ranger, Casey feels self-conscious and starts to have an identity crisis. He felt as if he wasn't the leader anymore. RJ admits that he might have gotten carried away with being a Ranger. He reassures Casey he is the leader of the team. RJ's struggle with Casey training under his dad was a deep look into RJ's past and difficult relationship with his dad, but RJ is constantly looking to grow as a person and student himself. Like I said before, RJ is a very well used character and one of the mentors we know the most about in the franchise. As the show continues, Jared or Daishi is on a path also mirrored from the Rangers, training as they train and trying to gain more power. As he gets stronger, stronger, so do the Rangers. This helps a lot with the argument of why doesn't the villain just send down all their monsters and go defeat the Rangers? In this season, it's because he isn't ready to defeat them. He is working towards that goal. Each master that comes along helps Daishi grow strong. One episode that shows this perfectly is episode 9, Good Karma, Bad Karma. This episode shows Casey having a teachable moment with a kid who steals his tip to buy a kite, eventually getting through to this kid that his actions, although may seem small, have a huge impact on his future. During this, Connoisseur is taking Jared into his past and reversing all the choices he made to be a better person, ultimately producing a darker and darker soul in Jared, fueling Daishi's power. The villains throughout this season are done really well. With each general or monster Daishi brings back to life, it's upping the ante. When we get to the Phantom Beasts and the Phantom Beast generals, it's really an amazing job they did. Just like in Mystic Force with the 10 Terrors or In Space with the Psycho Rangers, it really adds suspense. It's really no different than the Monster of the Week, but it lets us get to know some of these monsters a little better than one and done. It's a great little trick I'm surprised doesn't happen in every single season. Now, Dominic is one of my favorites. I'm happy to finally have a Rhino Ranger. He also has no desire to become a Paishuan master. It takes a strong person to not feel the pressure to conform. He wants to help the Rangers and feels very strongly about it. He definitely has the skill level to become a master. You can see it in the episode where he is correcting all the Rangers on their fighting techniques. He has mastered his fighting style, but for him, becoming a master isn't fulfilling. Using that ability to help others is. Now, I'm a musician, and whenever there's a really talented student in band or choir, a lot of teachers pressure them into majoring in music in college. In reality, most of these people don't want to do that, and if they do, they usually end up really resenting music because they don't want to be that involved. They just want to enjoy it. Some of the happiest musicians out there are the ones who just play in a community group for fun or play at the bars on the weekend. This is Dominic's relationship to Pai Schwa. Sort of like Dominic uses Pai Schwa, but Pai Schwa doesn't use Dominic. Dom coming into the show so late in the series is like a reality check for Casey. For Casey, Theo has always been the serious one of the group and Lily the playful one. Casey was more like Lily, but you can see now Casey isn't a fan of Dom's playful side. This makes Casey decide which way he wants to go, ultimately finding a way to accept Dominic, but also pushing him to be more like Theo. The Pai Schwa masters are written in a way that helps the story move forward at full speed. In contrast, let's use Beast Morphers and Captain Chaku, for example. When he appears, he is an intergalactic police officer from the G5 galaxy. Now, I don't have any issue with the character, and I welcome any sort of extension to the universe, but when he appears, we really have no idea where he comes from or what the organization he works for is like. It's a blank canvas, and that can be good, but when you are dealing with a shortened season and a writer's strike, keeping the side characters as Pai Schwa masters was really effective. We already know what their values are since they studied Pai Schwa. Master Fant, although seems to have turned away from it, we still know a great deal about his past, and him coming around to help Lily is a great moment. He needed her as much as she needed him. Master Swoop was RJ's master, which gives us an instant connection to him, and the fact that he is so fond of RJ shows us quickly that he is okay with RJ's lighthearted personality. Maybe he is more accepting of RJ than other masters would be. Master Finn, being RJ's dad, is another quick connection. Knowing so much about RJ's personality already helps us see exactly who his dad is in a reverse way. Everything RJ is sort of the opposite of Master Finn. These three masters don't need endless amounts of character development because we are sort of tricked into knowing so much about. Personally, I am a huge fan of original Power Rangers. We get a set of 3 Rangers and we don't have to meet a new set of teenagers or spend several episodes learning about new characters. They just use the masters, and it is done really well. I love to see the franchise take on these endeavors, and giving us the Spirit Rangers through the masters is a really unique and original idea that we have never seen and haven't seen since. That was Jackie's idea, and once again, she's trying to do something special with Power Rangers. Fran is also a great combination of characters. Dino Thunder is a great comparison. They have Cassidy, Devin, and Haley as 3 of the regular cast. Fran is a comedic relief character like Cassidy Cornell. She has some profound learning moments like like Devon, and a support system for the Rangers like Haley, and actually teaches them some things like a mentor. She brings a heart and soul to the group that wouldn't be there without her. She represents the audience, us, who don't have superpowers but want to make a difference. Fran is the one who helped RJ get his animal spirit back in check. She pulled Lily out of her funk when she had been affected by the quill. She got the Rangers to reconsider Dominic. When you look through the show, she honestly saved the world by helping save the Rangers. But she was a very tragic character. She was always at the pizza shop because she had nowhere else. It was her life to sit alone and read while eating pizza. When she faced RJ in his animal spirit form, she told him he took her in and gave her a home and a family with the Rangers. I have had moments in my life where I felt like Fran did at the beginning of the show. Of course, her tragic backstory ends when the show begins. And at the end, her and Dominic go off to backpack across Europe. So Fran gets the beautiful ending she deserves. This season dealt with a lot. Less episodes to work with, a writer's strike, but one reason this season was so fantastic was that the actors on the season had so much experience prior. Jason Smith was a soap opera star in Australia before being on Power Rangers. His best friend in the show was played by Chris Hemsworth. Every interview Jason does, every single person asks him about Chris Hemsworth. Oh, do you guys still keep in touch? What is he really like? Oh my gosh, he's Thor. That's so cool. I cannot imagine how annoying it is to constantly have to talk about somebody else in all your interviews. He was a big enough star to actually be on Dancing with the Stars Australia, and around the time he took the role of Power Rangers, he recorded several songs. I have a playlist on my channel of Power Ranger music done by the actors. It's pretty poppy, but it's fun. But overall, Jason was not new to the acting world. He had lots of experience. Algin was on a show called High Flyers about a child circus. He was one of the reoccurring characters that was on all 26 episodes of the show. That was his first major role in 1999. In 2002, he was on a show called Guinevere Jones, which he once again was in all 26 episodes of that show. He was in all 13 episodes of Legacy of the Silver Shadow, which was a show about a group of people learning a superhero lived in their town. He was a regular cast member on 3 shows and a walk-on for several other shows prior to Power Rangers. Anna Hutchinson started out on 6 episodes of the New Zealand soap opera Shortland Street, but a few years later landed Lisa on Disney's Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior. You can see this on Disney Plus, and the other best friend in the movie is played by Sally Martin, who was Tori in Ninja Storm. By the way, if you haven't watched it yet, I did a video on Ranger actors doing movies and TV shows together. Wendy Wu was on there because it features a ton of Power Ranger actors. If you haven't seen it already, please check it out. It's a lot of fun. Anna actually met Koichi Sakamoto, longtime stunt coordinator for Power Rangers, while filming Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior. Koichi recommended Anna to the Power Rangers casting director Terry Death. Even though she didn't do martial arts on Wendy Wu, she had studied Aikido, boxing, and kickboxing prior to the movie. David D. Latour started out his career on 2 episodes of Xena Warrior Princess. His first consistent role was on a show called Being Eve, where he was in 15 of 22 episodes. He was in 21 episodes of What I Like About You, starring Amanda Bynes. So this was probably when he was living in America, because he credits his American accent from being there for 6 years prior to Power Rangers. Nikolai, who played Dominic, was nowhere near new to television. He started acting at 12 years old and landed a lead role on a show called Crash Zone. The show lasted 2 seasons. He was on 19 episodes of season 2 of Saddle Club. He also did a run for 26 episodes on a show called Wicked Science. There are a number of movies and TV shows he did small parts on leading up to Power Rangers. He brought a ton of experience with him to Jungle Fury. One of the most experienced actors Power Rangers has ever hired. Seriously, an insanely kind person. Every interview with him, you can tell how much he is like his character on Jungle Fury. Very kind, but recently you will see him playing a lot of villains. He was in Daredevil, Stranger Things, 6, and others. Sarah Thompson, who played Fran, actually got her start voicing 2 monsters on Power Rangers SPD before landing the comedic role on Jungle Fury. She voiced Diane and Hydrax on SPD and also voiced Lupus on Jungle Fury. She went on to have a very long-running career on Shortland Street with 286 episodes, and then was on a show called The Mo Show, which was a children's show, but she was very heavily involved throughout the 187 episodes, helping write and co-write a large amount of the episodes. But all in all, she was probably the least experienced actor from this season, but she already had experience with the show. Holly Shannon, of course, already had experience on Mystic Force. Her experience already being on the show was a big help, I'm sure. And I would assume working with BB, who was a relatively new actor, was helpful because she could could probably guide him through how things operated there. Holly has gone on to work with a lot of youth drama programs, and she really is an incredible person. The cast's vast amount of experience is not a common reoccurrence for Power Rangers. When comparing to the season before it, Operation Overdrive, it's easy to see why Jungle Fury was so strong. Now, Dwayne Cameron, who played Tyzon on Power Rangers, was on several long-running TV shows before getting the Sixth Ranger role. Gareth Ewan was on 3 TV shows as a lead and a number of others. But James Buford had 1 short credit prior with his acting. Samuel Banta had 5 walk-on roles on TV shows before Power Rangers. Rhonda had 1 walk-on TV spot and a small part in a movie. Caitlin Murphy was on 1 short. Rhea Vandervis was in a movie the same year Power Rangers was being recorded. But as you can see, the main cast is nowhere near as experienced as Jungle Fury. Not that Overdrive was bad, it just really shows you the level of difference between the two. I'm a big fan of RPM like most franchise fans, but I really have a soft spot for Jungle Fury and hope this helps some people that maybe aren't big Jungle Fury fans see what's so great about the season. And when I talk about how efficient the storyline is and how they use characters in this way, I don't want it to sound like mathematically it's a great show and that's why. It really is a fantastic show. The characters, you get so deeply involved into who they are and what they're like that it really gives a heart and soul to the season because they just kind of leave out all the fluff. And that's what's so great about this season. I have a son who's 2.5 years old. He has jumped into Jungle Fury. That's the season that has been the start for him. We found a Jungle Fury book at the library. He read it and he got really into it. And now he just loves watching Jungle Fury. We've watched other seasons, but he always wants to come back and watch Jungle Fury at some point. I have to say, watching David D. Latour as RJ is always hilarious. Nikolaith is like just a great character to watch. I mean, the whole show, the whole cast is great, and I just really love it. If you like this, please subscribe, but also I'll catch you in the next one.